Okay, ladies and gentlemen, which poem did we leave off on? You should have your Padlet opened up. Which poem did we leave off on? Bird. Which one? About a bird. Okay, we did the one with the bird that ate the worm. Is that, what is it, 328? This one 328? Did we start it at all? Did we read any of it? Did we read all of it? We haven't started at all? Nothing? Okay, so that's good. Let's start it then. All right. Well, let's just read it. I'll read it first. Okay, you ready? All right. Here we go. Everyone pay attention. Okay, so 328. It's on page 1176 if you have your book. 1176. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm waiting for you guys. You ready? 1176. Waiting for the gentleman. You guys got it? We ready? Okay, here we go. Poem 328. A bird came down the walk. He did not know I saw. He bit an angleworm in halves and ate the fellow raw. Hold on one second. Guys. When I'm reading, you need to be quiet, okay? Let's do this again. A bird came down the walk. He did not know I saw. He bit an angleworm in halves and ate the fellow raw. And then he drank a dew from a convenient grass, and then hopped sideways to the wall to let a beetle pass. He glanced with rapid eyes that hurried all around. They looked like frightened beads, I thought. He stirred his velvet head, like one in danger, cautious. I offered him a crumb, and he unrolled his feathers and moved him softer home. Then oars divide the ocean to silver forest seem, or butterflies off banks of noon leap clashless as they swim. Okay, that's one reading of it. I'm going to read it again in a different way. A bird came down the walk. He did not know I saw. He bit an angleworm in halves and ate the fellow raw. And then he drank a dew from a convenient grass. And then hopped sideways to the wall to let a beetle pass. He glanced with rapid eyes that hurried all around. They looked like frightened beads, I thought. He stirred his velvet head like one in danger, cautious. I offered him a crumb, and he unrolled his feathers and rode him softer home. Then oars divide the ocean to silver forest seem, or butterflies off banks of noon leap clashless as they swim. Okay, first of all, what is this about? Just basically on the surface, what is this about?
A bird.
A bird. Yeah, it's about a bird. Okay? Someone's looking at a bird. There's a little bird. And if you look at the first two stanzas, it's kind of nice. It's just a simple little thing, and you'll see something. A bird came down the walk. What is a walk? Yeah, like a sidewalk, somewhere where people walk, okay? We call those things walks. Sidewalk, a trail, something like that. So she's talking about somewhere where people walk. So a bird came down the walk. Sounds like he's kind of like walking down the walk, right? Okay? He did not know I saw. Okay, so this is the first time we hear that somebody's watching the bird, okay? He bit an angleworm in halves. Okay, so we probably don't know what an angleworm is, but you know what a worm is, right? Okay, so there's a worm there. It says he bit an angleworm in halves. He cut it in half. He bit it in half. All right? And then he says, and ate the fellow raw. And ate the fellow raw. He didn't even bother to cook it. Well, how many birds do you know that can cook? None. How many birds do you know that eat cooked worms? Maybe some, if they have an owner or something that cooks the worms for them. I've never heard of it before, but it's kind of... So, what is she doing here? What is Emily Dickinson doing here with this bird? What is she trying to do? She's trying to make the bird like what? Human. Yeah. It's called It's called personification, meaning to make someone like a person, or to make something like a person. Okay? So she's making the bird like a little person. And so the bird's walking down the walk, he bites an angleworm, has swallows the thing, he doesn't cook it at all. And then it says the next part, it says, and then he drank a dew. Remember dew? Is that like bead of water that you find on a leaf? Or maybe on a glass or whatever? And he's on a convenient grass. So it happens to be a very convenient piece of grass sitting nearby. Then he just kind of, gosh, you okay? Yeah, okay. And then there's a very convenient grass just nearby, and he just kind of grabs over takes a drink off the dew. Okay? So he takes a look, and then he drank a dew from convenient grass, and then he hopped sideways to the wall to let a beetle pass. Now, I don't know, it could be one of two ways. One, he's a gentleman. The beetle was coming along, and, he just let the beetle go by. He's being a gentleman. He hopped over and said, oh, please. Or maybe the beetle's really big, and, the bird's kind of scared of him. I don't know. Either way, he's behaving kind of like a human. You step out of the way, and you sometimes push your way through when you're walking around places, going towards the subway or something like that. And same with the beetle. And then it says, he glanced with rapid eyes that hurried all around. They looked like frightened beads, I thought. All right? So he glanced with hurried eyes. So he's looking everywhere. Have you ever seen a bird's head when it turns? I mean, you've seen it, but have you ever noticed how a bird's head turns? Do birds look like this? Do birds do this? I'll show you looking from here to here, around here. Okay, do birds do this? No, they don't do this. They do that. Right? Okay, so she sees this. So he glanced around with rapid eyes that hurried all around. The eyes are going, they look like frightened beads, I thought. A bead is like on a necklace, those little round things that are on a necklace. Okay? Those are beads, little round circle things, okay? So his two little eyes look like two little beads that were very nervous and scared. Alright? And he's looking around. That's what birds do. But in this case, maybe she's kind of characterizing himself. He's looking around like, what's going on? Oh, something's wrong. Like a human again. Alright? And then she says, he stirred his velvet head like one in danger, cautious. Okay, so he stirred his velvet head like someone in danger. Have you ever seen a spy movie? Or like a detective movie or something where someone's in trouble and they've got their gun out or their guns or whatever? Okay, so this is kind of like with the bird. The bird looks nervous like there's somebody coming after me or something like that. He just ate the worm. And birds have that sense. Birds do look kind of skittish, like they're ready to jump around. All right, and then it says, this is the part where it's a little weird because the person watching stops watching and they put themselves into the world of the bird. Okay? And what do? They offer the bird a what? Okay, and what is a crumb?
A piece of bread.
It is a piece of bread. What kind of piece of bread?
Very small piece.
Very small piece. It's either one of two things. One, it's when you eat a sandwich or you have toast or something, it's a little piece of bread that falls off. That's really small. Or it's a little piece of bread that's kind of like pulled off. Like a little chunk, about that big maybe. Okay? And birds like bread. Have you ever seen people at the park, throwing the bread to the birds, right? Okay, so that's, something I want to do when I'm like 80 years old. I want to be at the park feeding the ducks and the birds and stuff like that, right? Okay, so this person just offered a crumb to the bird. And what does the bird do? He unrolled his feathers, okay? So did the bird really unroll his feathers? No. It's a figure, it's just beautiful. Because you see birds when they do their things, it is kind of nice. He unrolled his feathers. And what did he do with them? He rowed him softer home. He rowed home. What does it mean to row?
Walk.
Okay. Well, to row is a boat, right? The next line has a thing. It says, he rowed him softer home than oars divide the ocean to silver for a seam. Okay, so he rowed him softer home than oars divide the ocean. So, what's an oar? You know an oar? What is it? Yeah, to row the boat, right? This summer I went to a place called Lake Tahoe, a beautiful lake between California and Nevada, and just gorgeous lake. And I rented a kayak, which is like one of those one-person boats, and they give you a little oar and you just row. Okay? Now if you're like me, you're going like this, and your boat starts to go too far this way, and you're going this way, trying to keep it straight. If you're really good at it, you're just like smooth. Okay? A bird rows his feathers smoothly, okay? This bird was so smooth. When you row a boat, what do you leave behind? What's behind you?
Waves.
Yeah, waves. Okay, waves. You leave disturbance, okay? Same thing with a bird or a car or an animal or anything. When a car or anything goes to wind that fast, it leaves something behind it, right? Okay? And so it said though, she's saying he was so soft with his wings, they were like oars, so soft that he left silver for a seam. A seam is like this or this on my shirt. Okay, it's a meaning of two places. Okay, and on shirts it means it's two places where they have to be sewn together. Some seams are kind of just big and ugly. Some seams are this, you can barely see them. And they're very beautiful. Maybe most of the very expensive clothing. It's very, very delicate, very nice seams. Well built, but hard to see. Okay? And he says, basically, she says, he flew so elegantly. It was just, he took off and he was flying so elegantly. He left a seam of silver, meaning like just not much, just a very beautiful little thing of just the color of his wings or whatever, maybe. Nothing, not a big disturbance. He's that elegant. Okay. Or butterflies off banks of noon leap plashless as they swam, okay? It was just like two oars dividing the ocean with just a thin seam, or like butterflies off the banks of noons. Or, you know, he was flying so nice, he was just like butterflies off a bank in noon. At noon, which is the middle of the day. You know, when you see a butterfly, butterflies look like butterflies usually look very elegant. You know what I mean? Butterflies, they just kind of, sometimes they do kind of hover around, kind of like randomly, but even then, they do it in a pretty way. And that's what she's kind of describing the bird. She's saying, you know, he left nothing behind him other than a silver streak, and it was just as elegant as, even like a butterfly. That's how elegant this bird is. All right. Now, what does it mean? Why did she write it? Is there a serious thing behind this? Is there a non-serious thing behind this? Why did Emily Dickinson write this poem? Well, tell me, what do you think? It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong.
Because maybe he thinks it's very beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. Maybe she thinks that, maybe she saw a bird that day. Maybe she was walking around with her lips. And she's just kind of writing a poem about what she did that day. Maybe she threw a crumb and the bird just said, whoa, took off. And she wrote a poem about it. Yeah. And she just wants to make a special poem about it. Show everybody the way she saw something. Show her feelings for the bird, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It could be that. And it probably is something like that. Although some people say there's a little something else in there. Now, if you were to read deeper into this, the first part is describing the bird as kind of humanish. And that kind of is like the feelings and all that, you know, you like the little bird, you make him into a little gentleman, and he eats his thing raw and that kind of thing, and steps aside for the beetle. Okay? But what happens, there's one key point, the poem changes. So the poem has the first part where the bird's walking around, he's happy, he's looking around, he's kind of scared or anything. And then something happens and he flies away. What happens? Okay, and what does that maybe symbolize? So the bird's happy, has no idea it's being watched, because at the start it says, didn't know I was watching him. So the bird's doing his bird thing or whatever, and he's just being watched, but he doesn't know it. And he's looking around like a bird does, very nervously and everything. And then they offer the crumb, and the bird takes off. What might that offering of the crumb be like? What would the bird and the worm and what else is there? The bird and the worm and the beetle all symbolize?
Government.
What?
Government.
Government? Maybe, I guess, but I'm looking at something a little more closer. What? Well, you got the bird, you got a beetle, you got grass, you got,
Nature.
yeah, nature. Okay, maybe it symbolizes nature. And what does the person giving the crumb symbolize?
People disturbing the nature.
Very good, maybe. Okay, I'm not saying for sure, but there's a strong belief out there that this is what she meant. This is a kind of a thing where people are disturbing nature. Now, it doesn't end up with the bird dying. It doesn't end up with the bird dying, but the bird does fly away. Very beautifully still. So she's still, even when it's flying away, nature is still beautiful, is what she might be saying. She might be saying because nobody's ever sure about this. Remember, that's rule number one of this class is no interpretation will ever be right. There have been, like I told you, there have been authors that have 20 years later changed their own interpretation of their own poem or short story or novel. Okay, so no interpretation. But there are people that believe that this is one of Emily Dickinson's slight ways, because you've got to remember this is the 1800s in America, and industrialization is starting to happen. And so even she would see, like out her window, mankind kind of encroaching on nature. You've got to remember, America at the time would be growing very fast compared to what it was before. Before, America was basically 13 colonies, little tiny settlements inside a forest kind of thing. You know, it was basically nature and little man. Now man's starting to take over. And there are consequences when man takes over. And in China, you guys can name some consequences. The air. Right? Okay? And this might be her thing. It wasn't anywhere close to what we have nowadays, though. But she's starting to see things. People start to see their wells. You know what a well is? A well is a place like in a village or something where you get your water from. It's where people used to get their water. They would dig deep in the ground and they'd make a round little thing, and they'd take a bucket and lower it down and pull the bucket out and you get fresh water. Now, if something happened to the water that was going under the ground and somebody got sick, they would realize the water was bad and they have to close the well. This didn't usually happen. That's why wells were protected and they put a little cover over them and everything, and they were kind of like no one messes with the well because it's the water for everyone in the area. Okay, but in this time, people started to get bad wells. Why? Because people were mining, people were building things nearby that affected the water underneath the ground. And people were starting to put together that that's not good. Okay, so this could be basically, and a lot of people think it's a little bit of her way of saying, don't mess with nature. Nature's beautiful. And the only thing is she doesn't really, the bird doesn't die. Does it make sense? There would be a stronger argument if like she offered the crumb and the bird tried to eat the crumb and choked on it or something. Then you could say, see, humans gave it a crumb and they were trying to do the good thing, but it ended up killing the bird, right? In this case, off the crumb, the bird just flies away. Okay.
This bird having been a horse, like human.
Have it be a horse?
Horse.
Oh yeah, being hurt by a human. So a lot of people just say like, well, the bird it doesn't want the crumb. The bird doesn't take the crumb in this case. So a lot of people argue that if the bird doesn't take the crumb, it's rejecting humanity. And in this case, if the bird represents nature, then nature rejects humanity. And she might be saying, we need to be here, and nature stay over here, and we don't need to disturb it. That's just one idea.
I have an idea because after the human offered the breath for the bird, it changes attitude. Because at first, the bird just eat the raw worm, and after it became adjectives.
Oh yeah, before it doesn't talk about it being so beautiful really, it's just kind of a character. An apple is beautiful. Yeah. It could be that and it could be also pointing out that nature's beautiful, even if we're destroying it, it's beautiful, or even if we're bothering it, it's beautiful.
No, I mean it's an attitude about if no one is noticed it, it will just be itself. Like it just eat a worm. It's rude. And after the human notice, it will someone is watching me and I need to be very beautiful.
Oh, okay. So it behaves differently if it knows it's being watched. Nature. Okay. Although at first I think, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's good. But ultimately, again, it seems like a lot of writing about the bird to be all about humans too much. I don't know. That's my personal opinion. I go over here. I think ultimately it's about the beauty of nature. And I think ultimately she probably did see a bird. And there's a tendency, and if you read more of her poems, she does like to write about nature, especially trees and birds and bees and things like that, and insects. And she has a thing about death too. She writes about death a lot. We'll get to that soon. But she oftentimes will write about something very specific. So in this case, one single bird that's walking around doing its thing. Other times it'll be an insect or a tree or something like that. She doesn't usually talk about large things. You notice there's no forest here. There's no waterfall or anything like that, or a large ocean or something like that with many different animals. She's talking about one specific bird, a worm, and the flying one. Okay, so I think this is her botany, her love of botany coming through, and her love of nature and things. Maybe she saw it out the window. Maybe she was just up in her house or whatever. She looked out the window and saw the little bird eat a worm or something, and then she went to offer a crumb, and she took off. She said, I don't know about that. Maybe that's something nice. And maybe she does tie it into humans interfering with nature, because that was a theme that was starting to come up at the time. Okay? In any case, there's something interesting about this poem other than what we read. You should notice when you look at this poem without reading it, you should notice at least 3 things, maybe 4. What should you notice? Look at the poem itself. What's the first thing you notice about this poem? See anything? Look at the words, look at the way it's put together. What do you notice? And you'll notice this in all of her poems.
There's a major punctuation.
Okay, what kind of punctuation does she use? What is that thing called? She uses one kind of punctuation.
Dash.
Actually two, but she uses one usually. Yeah, it's called a dash. She uses dashes instead of other punctuation. And there's a lot of argument, there's a lot of discussion online and also in the academic community as to why she did what she did. And there are some concrete reasons. One of being which female authors would often use a dash instead of a period. She does use a period at the very end of the poem, though, to show it's over. She does use a comma later. She uses a comma in between things too, but the dash is always there. I put some links up here. Punctuation and capitalization. There's some links here for people with different opinions about it. I want to add some more links, and I would like you to read them. They're not too long. They're not difficult reading. They're little short things, and it talks about different opinions about why she did what she did. And there's another thing. Before we go to that though, what are two other things you can see else also? So she's got the dashes everywhere. What else? How does she write? How does she put together her poetry? Should be very simple. If you look right at it, you can see it right away.
It's short.
It's short. How short?
6 words.
Okay, but before you even see that, what do you see? Do you know what a stanza is?
Yeah.
How big are her stanzas?
4 lines.
4 lines. Everything Dickinson writes, not everything, but most everything Dickinson writes is 4 lines. Okay? If you were to look at the rhyming pattern, it's A, B, A, B. Okay? Mostly. But the third thing that you should notice is there's this weird thing in there. When do we capitalize a word? At the start of a sentence, and what else?
And
Space.
specific words.
Okay, what kind of specific words?
Like
Name.
Names,
place.
name, place,
Nation.
important things, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In this case, the bird is a noun, walk is a noun, but walk, well, maybe they call it the walk, but I don't think so. Angleworm is not well, I guess it could be a name. I guess it is a name of an animal. A dew is not special. A dew is normal.